Alrighty. So, we're going to try this number 2. We're going to try again. Because apparently I was lagging. And I don't want to be lagging. So we got our cakes. And we got Leona. And we have Emily. And we have Laura and Christine. So we're doing good. Yeah. So everyone, am I lagging? Oops. Good. She's here. John is here. Much better. Oh, good. I am glad. So sometimes it does work a lot better if I just if I try to just redo it. All right. Good. Well, I know you didn't really get to hear me before talk about my paintings, but I think that just means we're supposed to get down to business, which means we're going to talk to Jessica. I'm going to go ahead and invite her right now. I'm really excited to have Jessica. She is a cake artist. Come on. Don't to cake.
Hi.
Yay! Oh, down to cake. That makes more sense. She goes, don't to cake. And I'm like, what does she mean? She goes, down to cake. Emily is super excited because Emily, among the million things Emily apparently has done in her life, she actually took some classes in at community college in cake decorating and like doing culinary school.
Awesome.
So she said though she was more of a pie person.
Okay.
She goes, I could never quite get into all that piping and stuff.
Oh,
but,
with one of these little bags, you mean?
Yeah. But you said bring on the cake. We have a couple more people here. We have the Gilmores just said hello.
Hi.
And I know Kylie was on here a little bit before. Vera and Kylie, I think, are both on. So very exciting. Oh, and then my friend Kim joined. So this is really good. All right. So the question of the hour is, how did you get started making cakes, Jessica? What made you start this whole thing?
So ironically, cake decorating runs in my family. My mom used to be the family cake maker. My cousin makes cakes. My grandmother apparently made cakes as well, but I started when I started making my kids cakes. When my daughter Bella came along, I kind of took the reins from my mom and said, I want to try this. I've always been kind of creative, so
wow,
I loved art, and this just kind of became my easel. And I started making cakes when Bella was 1, so back in 2012. And it kind of took off from there. Friends found me, and now I have a side business, and I have repeat customers, and I have friends from church and school and friends that I grew up with, and I love it.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I didn't realize that you hadn't been doing it that long, actually.
No.
So, although, I mean, now the years start adding up, but we won't talk about years adding up because I have a lot more years that have added up in my book of things. So, well, I know people want to see what you're working on. Do you have something that you're working on now that you can share with us?
I have a little bit. Let me see if I can. This is actually my first live, so you guys will have to give me some grace. Let me see if I can figure this out. Okay, there we go.
Absolutely. We're all about grace here.
Good. So this week I don't have a lot of cakes. I did last week, actually, but this week I'm working on some cookies. So with the wonderful COVID we have going on, we have a lot of the birthday parades that are happening. So this is an order. These are going to be thank you cookies. So I'm going to handwrite thank you on each one of these cookies, and then another 2 dozen to be wrapped individually and handed out to the folks that come in to say happy birthday.
Oh,
for our
wow.
birthday parade. So we've got bright colors, bright pink and teal, and then there's also purple and yellow, and they'll all say thank you and go in a little goodie bag.
That's awesome.
Yep.
That is so
So
awesome.
they're
Yeah.
fun.
And it really is so cool. Now, what kind of, I mean, most people know what cakes are, like flour, eggs,
Hmm.
but what kind of, well, Emily is ready to ask. She said, what kind of icing do you use?
So
So,
my,
what are some of the things that you use that kind of, maybe either set you apart or just that you specifically like to use?
well, the main icing that I use is American buttercream. It's very versatile. It's easy to pipe onto the cakes and do all the decorations, with the little bags like this. I can draw with it. And I can also add different flavors. Like I just have an order that's coming up for Friday that's going to be Nutella buttercream. So
Oh,
yes, it's very good. So it's very versatile. So that's my main icing that I use. I've used a couple other ones as well. I've used some Swiss meringue buttercream, and then different fillings like chocolate buttercream and peanut butter buttercream. But for decorating, mostly it's American buttercream. It's easier to work with.
okay. So, is there a difference between American buttercream and other people's type of butter? I mean, was there British buttercream?
Well, it's what goes in it. So American buttercream is it crusts. So which means
Uh-huh.
that it dries hard so that
Okay.
and then it'll soften once it comes to room temperature. But that's what makes it
Okay.
so easy to work with and do different designs because it kind of
Oh,
hardens and
okay.
stiffens.
Okay.
And it's just the different ratio that you use of the milk and cream and the powdered sugar.
Okay.
Um, so whereas Swiss meringue buttercream is very silky, it's made with a lot of butter and it's made with egg whites. So it's
Oh.
richer, but it's very silky. It's not as easy to do
Mm.
some of those fancy designs with that are very
But it
dainty.
just tastes
Oh
awesome, I bet.
yes, it very much does.
That's Emily said she's smirking real big because Swiss buttercream is fancy. She
It
said
is. It is
that's a
very
fancy
fancy.
guy. That's really cool. Let me see. I think somebody else had a question. Let me see. Oh, I guess not. You answer. Oh, well, here it is. Christine asked, "Do you make the icing yourself?"
I do. I have a recipe that I use, and I use the same one all the time. And very, very, very standard and easy. Good old bag of powdered sugar is the base of it all.
Uh-huh.
And I do a mixture, 3-to-1 of milk and heavy whipping cream. The heavy whipping cream gives it a little bit of a silkiness.
Nice.
Touch of salt to take out some of the sweetness so that you don't get that sweetness all the time. Not everybody likes that. Butter and vanilla. That's it. It's pretty simple. Very simple recipe, but it's again the most versatile, and I
Now,
use
is
it
that
on.
unsweetened? Is that the unsalted butter that you use
Yes.
for that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unsalted butter. That's why I just add a pinch, probably about maybe a half a table, not even a half a tablespoon of salt. Just then again, it just kind of cuts down on some of the sweetness.
Okay.
But yeah, unsalted
Okay.
butter.
That's cool. That's cool. Leona was asking, how do you come up with your designs? And maybe do you have some pictures of some of your
I
that you'd
do.
like to show? I mean, I love seeing your face, but
No,
people
absolutely.
do want to see all your cool because you have so many.
I
I mean,
do.
I could only put a certain amount online.
I printed a couple out. So basically, most of my designs, most people come with a vision. So depending on whether they have, this is a watercolor design that I did. And again, this is all made from buttercream, is something like this. Or this one is actually hand painted with icings, the palm trees, the sun. You can kind of see some of the designs on
See,
there.
what are you painting with?
So if you take The colors, the food coloring, I use the gel colors. If you dilute it
Okay.
with a little bit of lemon extract,
Okay.
and I use paintbrushes. I buy a brand new set of paintbrushes that have never been used, wash them and sterilize them, and I just use paintbrushes and I literally paint everything on there with the paintbrush. And you just,
Oh my goodness. So you mean the whole frosting, was that whole thing white and then you painted it blue, or you
that was
painted
all.
it blue?
No, I actually
You
iced it first. So just the
Yeah.
palm trees and the sun and the
Okay.
birds, all of that is hand painted on
Okay.
there.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Because I was going to be like, oh my goodness, you painted that entire
oh
thing? Whew.
goodness, no. That was just icing, but then I added on the accents with the paint. So you just dilute the gel coloring and then make the cake cold, and then you can actually just draw and write on there. It's easier if you use fondant, but honestly, most of my clients don't like fondant, so I do
Mm.
everything on buttercream. Um,
Wow, that's amazing. I assumed you use fondant just because of the way it looks. You
Yeah,
know.
I mean, I do sometimes, but probably about 90% of my cakes are all buttercream. Here's another one. This cake, sorry about the glare. This cake was
Yeah, if you actually
buttercream.
take it out of the page protectors,
Oh,
then
okay.
we won't have the glare on them.
Is that any better
So,
there?
yeah.
So again, most of my cakes are in buttercream here. Now I do use fondant, like for instance, on this here, all of these accent pieces on this Harry Potter cake are all fondant. So they're made
Okay.
and rolled out of fondant, colored,
Okay.
shaped. Um,
And I'm sorry, what really is fondant? To me, it's kind of like mystery stuff. I have
it's
no idea.
it's basically just sugar.
Okay.
It's I don't make it. That's one thing I don't make myself. So sorry, I used to this. So the fondant, I use the brand Satin Ice because it is
Okay.
it's allergy free. So I do
Okay.
some cakes that for people that are gluten free or nut free or dairy free, and that particular brand is allergy free, so I don't have to worry about that. But it's basically just sugar. It's a pliable sugar. You work with it like Play-Doh,
That's
and
what that's what she said. That's what Emily said. Sweet
yep,
Play-Doh.
you do. I saw somebody made a comment. I have made it out of marshmallow before. It doesn't give me the recipe that I had didn't give me quite the pliability that I needed for using, but I know you can make it that way. And sometimes also just for ease of time, it's easier just, I pick up a jug of it and
Sure.
I can make my things out of there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So,
but
someone else had a question. She says, "How do you make the cake cold?"
cool. Put it in the freezer for a cup
Yeah,
for about 10 minutes. Nothing fancy there.
that's what I thought. Because
Yeah.
she was like, "Is it like cold brew?" So I think she was thinking you were
Uh,
literally making it
oh
cold.
goodness,
I'm
no,
thinking,
no. Once it's been decorated, so like for instance, on back onto the blue one, once I had put the buttercream icing on this cake, I popped it in
mm-hmm.
the freezer for probably about 10 minutes to get the
Okay,
icing set and cold. And that way,
okay,
when you are touching it with the paintbrush, that it doesn't melt into the buttercream. So, yes, it is. You do it right on there, but that's how you make it cold. You just pop it in the freezer. So I'm constantly in and out of the freezer sometimes, and that helps get you a smooth finish on the cakes as well. Um,
yeah, yeah. Actually, Elaine said it was a joke, but actually, Elaine, I thought it was a good question because you never know, you know.
yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
No.
I don't work with cakes. I don't do any. This is all amazing to me. I mean, when my kids, you can ask my kids. I tried to make them like Barbie cakes and stuff like that, and people were kind and they told me it looked nice. But honestly, nothing like what yours looked like.
I actually just did a Barbie cake.
Uh
Um,
huh.
the other day, if I could find it on my Facebook page real quick, I could show you guys. But yeah, just this past weekend, one of those famous Barbie cakes. Oh, and of course I can't find it on here yet. But anyway, so a couple of the other things that I have done, you said for pictures on here, I do cupcakes as well. So
Mm-hmm.
these are cupcakes that it actually looks like a flower
They look
pot.
like flowers in a pot.
Those are actually cupcakes. So I
That
piped
is great.
different flower designs onto the cupcakes, and the client was doing a birthday party, so she bought the flower boxes and had, just like you would with the netting and things underneath, and we put them
Hmm.
on toothpicks, and there you go, you had flower pots.
That is awesome. We had a question. Um, Julia wanted to know what happens if it melts, like once you're finished decorating. And then also Emily wanted to know, do you watch the Great British Baking Show and do you wish that you were on it? So there's your few questions.
Okay, so to Julia, that is definitely one of the challenges is temperature.
Hmm.
Buttercream, of course, because it is made from butter, will melt. So, it's very important for a client. Like, for instance, I'm showing you, these are cactus cupcakes that I made
So
over the weekend. And these were all buttercream. And these I actually had to travel an hour with. These went to Frederick.
okay.
So,
Did you have them in a
basically,
cooler?
well, I keep the car very cold. All of my cakes and cupcakes and orders stay in the refrigerator until I leave, so that they
Okay.
set overnight and they're cold and they're stiff, and that gives me
Hmm.
time. But
Okay.
basically, it's telling have to tell every client you can't take it out too soon, about an hour ahead of time, to bring it to room temperature because you don't want to eat cold cake. Um,
Right.
but because then it's like eating cold butter. Um, but the buttercream will start to melt after a while. So summer parties, you can't leave this stuff sitting outside. It's got to stay in the house, or the buttercream will just literally melt right off the cakes. So that is definitely one of the hard things there. Um, I see somebody posted, I do not put the finished product in the freezer. It does stay just in the refrigerator. I have an all refrigerator that gives me plenty of space to store everything. It goes into a box and then it stays there until it's time for delivery or for pickup. I
Okay.
don't watch the British Baking Show. I actually don't really watch any TV,
That's
because
because you're too busy
I'm
baking,
busy.
baby.
This is not my full-time job. This
Right.
is Cakes are my kind of side gig. So I do this during the nights. So I work during the day, and then at nights is when I do my cake orders. So not really any time for watching TV there. Um, but
Well, if you ever want to watch TV, I would highly recommend it. It's actually very entertaining.
oh, wonderful!
I
I'll
mean,
have to check it out.
it is it's worth watching. It really is. And there's multiple seasons, so it could keep you
Okay,
occupied. If you get sick, if you're sick and laid up and you can't go to work, you can watch them.
there we go.
And
Perfect.
Leona wanted to know, how do you keep your hands from cramping? And Elaine wanted to know, and turning purple.
Oh, well, you mean turning purple from changing the colors, or from just
I'm
holding
not
everything
sure
down?
which one she means.
Cramping, that is a very hard one. I have to take breaks.
Okay.
Sometimes I made cactus cookies last week, and I literally piped the lines on all of the cactus cookies, and
Those
that
were
was
amazing.
some major hand cramping. Um, but you just take breaks on and off, and you kind of stretch your fingers out.
Okay.
But that's really all you can do. And start early enough so that you have time to get the order done. So if you have to take a break, you're still on schedule for the order being done. But yeah, it's some
All
other.
right. Now, was that one that you just had underneath? Was that a cupcake cake?
Yep, those are all cupcakes kind of put together and decorated together to look like a cake.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a fun one that I did last summer for a client for their pool party. These are
Very
also
fun.
cupcakes. This was a billiards party. So each one of the pool balls is its own separate cupcake.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic.
So, yeah.
Leona wanted to know, do you feel like you're still expressing your style even while completing orders?
Oh, absolutely. Even if like I think what I mentioned saying before, most people have a vision of what they want. They'll send me a picture. I saw this on Pinterest. This is what I want, or I want
Okay.
this piece and this piece. And I'm pretty good at duplicating what they want, but there's always some tweaks that make it different. So I feel like I'm still getting that artistic me in there because of, you know, the slight variations that they may not notice, but I
Okay.
notice over who the original person was that did the
Uh-huh.
cake that they're showing me a
Uh-huh.
picture of.
Yeah, you know, we sneaky artists, we sneak in our own stuff whenever we want, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This was a fun one. Let me show you this one real quick. This
That one is very intriguing.
this was awesome. If for any of our Redeemer friends on here, Julia, this was actually for Sebastian.
I was gonna guess.
This is, and so not only is this cake carved, but this cake is like basically completely allergy free. It is egg free, dairy free, gluten free, and this was also hand painted. So I iced the cake in the orange colors, but then you can see the design of the snakes because this is what his own snake looks like. I went
Right.
back and painted and touched in the white colors and some of the lighter oranges to give it the depth, to basically make it look like his own snake. So coiled up and set up just like his own snake.
Oh my
This
goodness.
was
So
that
did
was a
you,
fun one.
how did you carve the cake?
Yeah, so you have to kind of, I mean, cakes are obviously not usually round like that. I mean, there are some pans that you can get that are rounded, but basically you
Okay.
stack the cakes and you round them out so that it's shaped, but then you also have to carve in the inside to fit the head. The head is actually made out of Rice Krispies. I use Rice Krispies a lot
Okay.
for shaping, for something hard that
Yeah,
doesn't sit there.
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I've seen that on like Cake Boss. They would use the
yes.
Rice
I
Krispies
was trying to
for like
find, yes, here it is.
sculptural things.
The books on this Harry Potter cake. The books are the Rice Krispies first, and then they're covered in fondant. Just because if I did an
Okay.
entire book like that in fondant, it's heavy. Rice Krispies are light. So you can
Yes.
get away with not putting too much weight on the cake by just not putting a huge block of fondant on top of the cake like that.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I mean, it's a sculptural idea. So like
Hmm.
when I make sculptures with students, we'll talk about the armature and how you build when you're building things up, you don't want to make things too heavy because well, you
Hmm.
have to have a strong enough armature to hold whatever you're going to put on top of it.
Absolutely.
So if it's not a very strong armature, you cannot put really heavy stuff on top of it, otherwise it goes, you know,
Exactly. And
so
there are,
you have to figure it out. That's like when I do clay heads with the kids, we make an aluminum foil armature inside of it to make it so it's lighter,
hmm
so that the head doesn't go, you know, clunk over so easily. And that way I build it up with aluminum first and then we put the clay on top. And it's the exact same idea where you're like, you don't want the heavy thing being most of it, you know,
exactly.
because if it's on top, it's
It's
going
going
to
to
go right
fall.
through. So there's a little science, you know, that goes into this too. You know, you're kind of doing a little architecture as well as
Absolutely.
just painting.
Yep.
So yeah. So anyway, one of my questions is, have you ever had a cake that just was really a challenge? And if so, how did you resolve it?
Um, Sometimes it takes a lot of tears and redoing things. I had a cake where I had to carve a road into the side of the cake. It was basically a road that came down for a motorcycle to ride on up the side of the
Okay.
cake. And so not only and it was 3 tiers. So not only did I have to make sure that the road lined up all 3 tiers, but had to cut it into the cake and line it up. So that was probably one of my most challenging cakes. And it did actually turn out great. The motorcycle was up at the top of the cake, and the black road came down all 3 tiers
Wow.
on this white wedding cake. It was a wedding cake,
Oh,
actually.
that is cool.
Yes.
Emily said she saw that picture on Instagram and
Oh,
it looks
yes.
insane.
I usually put everything on there. Sometimes I'm slow. Some of my newer ones aren't on there yet, but typically everything that I do goes on Instagram, on my Facebook page. I do have a website. I'm getting better with posting on there too, but Facebook and Instagram, you'll definitely be able to see my most up-to-date work on there.
Yeah, well, Instagram's great for that, you know,
Yes.
because the nice thing is you just open up the profile and zoom, you know,
All
people can
pictures.
just take their finger and just
Mm-hmm.
and see it. So Laura was asking, when you carve, do you ever crumbs ever get into the frosting? And Leona also had a question, and that was, do you have any tips for people who might want to get into doing something like that?
Okay,
Like,
we'll get to Leona's in a second. Let me do Laura's first. So the key to not getting the crumbs in the frosting is 2 things. So one, you want your cake chilled. Trying to ice in a soft cake will be a disaster. So pop it in the refrigerator for about 20 minutes.
20
So
minutes.
about 20, 30 minutes, just so that when you touch it, it doesn't smush in. You want it kind of
Okay.
firm, but not
Now,
cold.
is that after it's already cooled on the counter for a while?
Absolutely. I actually never decorate my cakes the same day. I usually, and
Oh, okay.
here's another little tip for you. Because of my timing, and this is a tip that I learned from a baker, is if you bake, I usually bake early in the week, so like on Mondays and Tuesdays for my weekend orders. As soon as it started to cool down, you wrap it in plastic wrap, put it in a freezer bag, and pop it in the freezer. It seals in the moisture because it's still a little bit warm on the inside, and so it
Okay.
seals it in. So then when you're ready to decorate, like if I'm going to decorate on a Thursday or a Friday, I'll take it out the night before, put it in the refrigerator, still in the bag. And then when I'm ready to decorate it, it's already firm. So I put it on my board, and you can see
Okay.
I've got, this is my turntable. This is my easel, my turntable board, and my spatula. And I use an offset spatula. And once it's firm, you can get your first coat of icing on. And you actually call that the crumb coat. So your cakes, the best cakes, you actually do 2 coats. So you do one thin coat called the crumb coat, and then you let that set. So usually you put it in, put it in the refrigerator, sometimes overnight or a couple hours, especially if you have a filling. If you have a filling in the cake, you need to let that settle because the cakes are going to settle once they're together. And then you put on your good icing. Now you have no crumbs because you've locked those crumbs in with that crumb coat. And also the cake is firm because it was in the fridge, and now you won't have any of those crumbles. So that's how you kind of get your clean palette to get that smooth finish with the buttercream that gives it that fondant look but isn't. So that's how you get away from the
That is cool. So you do use the freezer, but you don't use the freezer when it has frosting on it.
When it's completed, correct. Yeah, you don't, because the problem is, and I have,
because you don't want to freeze the buttercream.
Well, exactly, because what happens is you have to be very careful because it can be done, but it has to be wrapped properly, and it has to thaw properly, because if it thaws too fast, it'll have condensation, and it'll mush. Condensation, the colors will run.
It'll be a bad thing.
Yeah, so it's definitely not recommended. It can be done if it's done properly and you have the space. But no, the freezer is just that kind of before you bake it or before you decorate it. Everything completed goes in the fridge. And then, I'm sorry, what was Leona's question again?
Leona's was, if you do you have any tips what are some top tips that you would give someone trying to decorate? Well, given what you just said,
That's
is timing.
Yeah, timing is a very big one. you know, and even myself, sometimes I overbook and I overextend my timing. And
You?
so,
Oh, never, Jessica. You're not an overbooker.
one weekend I had 9 orders in 5 days with a full-time job and 2 kids.
And 2 kids.
So timing is very key. But that's why, you know, I do my baking early in the week so that when it comes time to decorating, I can just pull them out of the freezer, pull them out of the fridge, and start the process. So yes, timing is very important, and you do want to have time, especially if you're working with something that is more than one tier. It has to have time to set in the fridge before travel. Even if you're just going 30 minutes, if it's 95 degrees outside and you're just using your air conditioning in your car, that cake needs to be set cold before you go, or it's not going to make it to its destination. And then I tell people, put it in the fridge when you get home, and then take it an hour before you're ready to serve it. So you know, timing is big. The keys, like I was talking about, the freezing the cakes, baking early, the crumb coat is huge. That will save so many cakes. I've had friends who have texted me, what am I doing wrong? It's crumbling. I'm like, well, did you just bake it? And they're like, yes, but it's cool. It has to be firm or it's going to fall apart. Trust me.
That itself is such a big tip. It's just like, you mean I can't make the cake and decorate it the same day?
I mean, you can, but not like within an hour. Maybe bake in the morning and decorate at night. That may be a little bit better.
Yeah, you know what my baking tip is?
What?
I get my daughters to do the baking while I make all the rest of the food for the party, and they do a fantastic job. So there you go. That's why Leon is asking, my daughter. It's like, I want to know because we have to make cakes. My mother won't ever make them.
I love giving tips, and it's so funny because, like I said, my friends will call me up and be like, so what am I doing wrong? And it's little things like that you've kind of learned. So crumb coat is a big deal. You know, having specific tools too, and you can get them inexpensively too. Like you can get them off of Amazon. You know, those of you that are local to the area, Cake Cottage is right in Overly. That's where I go weekly, sometimes bi-weekly, or twice a week to get my
They
supplies.
know you by name.
Oh, they do. And I get my supplies there, and you can get simple things like the bags and the tips and the couplers and things like that. Even stores like the craft stores, Michael's, Joann's.
Yeah.
I don't think AC Moore's around anymore, but those places have cake sections, and you can get like the Wilton brand very inexpensively to give yourself a basic way to start off. Like I mentioned, the offset spatula is great. This is my favorite one. This is Pampered Chef. I have 2 of them. It's my favorite one. It's got a good
I have
handle.
one too. It has many uses.
Yes, it's great. It's just it's a really good
It's
handle.
a great tool. Everyone should own one.
Yeah.
At least one.
Yeah, those are some of the tips.
Very good. Very good. Emily is saying the Cake Cottage. That sounds amazing. It is amazing, actually, Emily. But I think the reason why there's such a thing is, as the Cake Cottage in Baltimore, is because Baltimore has like an obsession with cake. I mean, I've never lived in a place where people were so obsessed with their cakes, and like the way it's the look of the cake and the taste of the cake. You know, like it's all about the cake.
Yes.
And it's just a Baltimore thing.
I mean, after all, we had the Ace of Cakes. I mean, good old Duff.
Yeah.
So
yeah. But even before that, like he came out of a cake culture. It's a cake culture. I mean, that's I mean, how about that? What is it called? The something island cake that has like 10
Smith
layers.
Island.
Smith Island cake. Yes, oh my goodness.
I believe it's 25 thin layers.
25
But I mean, they're like itsy layers.
That's insane. Have you ever made one of them?
I have not. I almost did. I had a request. A friend was going to have me make one, and I was willing to give it a try. But then COVID hit, and we ended up having to cancel the order.
That probably was a good thing. But, it would be an interesting challenge to try to do one.
Absolutely.
But they probably have to do a lot of chilling.
Yes, because you have to cut those super thin. And they
do very sharp. knives
Well, they
or?
actually sell a tool that allows you to keep the at like Joann's or whatever, but it's a slicer and it keeps it level so that you can go straight across without having to worry about your hand shifting on a knife.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you'd have to use it for that cake because
Oh yeah.
that's an insane cake. I did have it once, so it's super
I've
delicious
actually never
because
tried it.
it's it's just like cake and then filling and cake and filling. It's
Mhm.
like almost as much filling as it is cake, so it's pretty darn awesome.
I bet.
So I did promise people that I was going to show them the things that I finished this week. So
Okay,
I'm going to do
yes.
that right now. So we're going to. So anyway, this was the one I had started it last week. It is a hosta, but it's a different kind of hosta because instead of having the flowers like way up like most hostas do, this one actually has the very close to the ground. And so I call this painting the humble hosta because it's so everything in this painting is very actually close to the ground. But I love the leaves of this particular hosta because it has a lot of the way the light, depending on how the light is shining on it, it can actually look very yellow or very blue or kind of in between green. And so that's what this painting is able to show you, like all this different. I mean, that is actually it really is like blue. It's amazing. It's kind of it's a fun flower. So I'm almost done with that one. And then this was this is the reason I didn't finish that one earlier is because I was working on this.
Oh.
This is a double portrait of two kitty cats. This was a commission, and yeah, and the kitty cats were actually originally on they're brown kitties, and they were on a brown couch with with a brown blanket, and so the person who commissioned it is actually the sister-in-law of the person who's getting it, and she said, "Well, you don't have to do this background." So what I did is I actually used Photoshop, and I changed up the backgrounds, and then I gave her a couple choices, like different color combinations, and she's like, "Oh, she loves jewel tones, and she loves like purples and stuff." So that's what I went with. It looks all blue, but it's actually blue and purple. I don't know if I bring it closer. I don't think you can really tell, but it actually is. It's not just blue on the camera. The phone it looks blue, but it actually is blue and purple. And then you can also when it gets closer. Oh, you really can't see. It actually looks better when it's just sitting right here because you can see the detail better. There's actually quite a bit of detail in the face, but then as I get further away, I have less detail. That's just kind of the way I do my paintings that way. So those are the kitties, and I can't remember their names. She told me, and now I forget their names, but I just thought they were really cute. So there you go. All right, so let me flip it back to my face. Were there any more cakes you wanted to show us? Any other pictures that you had?
I don't think I had done some. I also do cookies, just because I had mentioned that I was working on cookies tonight.
Look at them.
These should actually look familiar to you. These are cookie pops
They
that I made for
do.
Redeemer. This
Yes.
was for I think this was Teacher Appreciation last
Yes.
year. And these are
Teacher
actually
appreciation.
large daisy cookies that I made on cake pops, on
And
pops.
I will vouch for their deliciousness. They were super delicious. And somebody told me, "Oh, Jessica made the cookies." I'm like, "Oh, they're going to be great."
So I did make those. Those were fun. And then this was another, just to show you the cookies. This was a mason jar order with some flowers there.
So cute. And so is that layers? Is that just layers of frosting
Mm-hmm.
of
And
the icing
yes, with the
to
icing.
make
And
the
so
flowers like that?
I use a glaze.
Cool.
Most people use a royal icing for their cookies.
Okay.
I use a glaze.
Okay.
I don't do as many cookie orders, so I haven't dabbled much into learning the royal icing very much. But I've gotten
Okay.
great feedback with the glaze. It's got a kind of a lemony glaze to it, and it still works very well. I mean, you can see that I'm able
Mm.
to layer on there, to write on there. So
Yeah,
I do use
I
that.
like the fact that yours does taste like something.
Yes.
They were delicious. I remember eating it and thinking, "Well, these really taste good." You know, 'cause sometimes things look really pretty, but then they don't taste as good.
Yes.
So, so if someone is local, because we have to be within about an hour of you to be able to get your cakes.
Yes.
Um, so poor Emily lives in upstate New York. She's not going to be able to get your
Sorry.
cakes unless she comes down here for a special visit. So they could go to your website
Yep.
or they could just contact you, I guess, through like Instagram or Facebook,
Yep,
right?
absolutely. So I'm on my Facebook page right now. So these are just some of my cakes on here now. But yeah, that's usually the best way. If you go to my Facebook page, Like a Lot Cakes and Parties, which I accidentally just closed out of. And you can message me right through there. And I do have some basics on there as far as what I offer, but honestly, it's so much is custom that people, again, it's easier just to kind of go over what it is that you're looking for and go from there. But yep, that's the best place to reach me. And you can see all my new work on there. I post on there, like I said, every day. Oh, those were the cactus cookies that I did.
I know those. That's why I put it in the post. I made sure I had that insane cactus cookies.
Yes, those were fun, and that was actually another Redeemer order. That was for the sweaters.
Yes,
For those of you that are from Redeemer and know them.
very good,
So
very good.
yes,
All right.
you can find me on there.
Um, so we have gone for almost 45 minutes,
Oh my
believe it or
goodness!
not.
Wow.
I know time flies when you're having a blast, and this has
Yes.
been super, super fun. Um, I'm just going to give people another minute if they want to ask you another question. This is the last chance, people, to ask her. No, they can always ask you a question. Oh, Emily has her
Favorite
weekly
color.
question.
Okay, my favorite color of frosting. Oh, well, my favorite color is purple, so I do love to work with purple. Um, I will do as much purple as I can. Unfortunately,
Mhm.
most people don't tend to like purple a lot. It just seems pink always seems to come up. Everybody loves pink. Not that I'm against pink, but I use a lot of shades of pink. If we were to look at my colors, my gel colors, I have about 5 shades of pink and 2 of purple.
Yeah,
But I do
yeah.
love purple, so I do like to play with it as much as I can. And I did do some really pretty purple flowers. So any of you that saw on my Instagram, they were flowers. They were piped flowers in purples, and I got to use a couple different shades with that, and that was fun.
Yeah, that's great. That's
So,
great. Um, and is there anything else you want to say before we get off? Is there any
um,
things that you wanted to share?
I don't think so. I mean, I really do love it. I mean, eventually, I would love to be able to do this as a full-time job, so to speak.
Hmm.
But I would need to have a commercial kitchen in order to do that. And right now, I'm
Right,
just doing this in my tiny little home kitchen, baking one cake at a time.
right.
Eventually there are many things to put into place, but that would be the
Right.
ultimate goal because I do love to
Yeah.
do it. It does.
Yeah.
I see Julia asking what is the record of the most tears. Oh, there have been many with some of them. If only I could count them.
I think she means Tier.
Is that
Like
okay? I thought you meant crying
she
tears.
wrote tears this way, but I think she means tears
Oh, there have been
this
many
way.
tears the other way. So I have actually done 2 4-tier wedding cakes. Wedding cakes are not my favorite thing.
Okay.
I like the creativity that goes into more of the custom cakes, the fun cakes, where you get to be a little bit more creative with cactus and sunsets and things like that. You don't always get to do
Yeah.
that with the wedding cakes. But
Yeah.
4 tiers is the highest that I've done. And I do not transport 4 tiers. I'll transport 3, and then I will assemble the 4th tier on site.
Sure.
But yes, I've done 2 of those. One was for a friend of the family, and then one was for a coworker. So
Very good.
yes.
Very good.
That's funny. I'm like, tears, many tears sometimes.
Yeah, because sometimes,
Absolutely.
things happen.
Yes.
Things happen when you're dealing with, like, I mean, I'll be working on something and something, my hand will slip and I'm like,
Yep.
but usually I can fix it pretty fast, especially if I see it right away. Like I go in with water and I clean it out and stuff. But with cakes, you make a big mistake and sometimes you probably have to do it over, don't you?
Yes, I actually have had to do that. We had talked about like the doll cakes with the Barbie in them. I had done a cake where it was one of the Frozen dolls. It was Elsa, and I had to get Elsa inside the cake, and I did not carve enough out of the center of the cake before I shoved her in, and the cake split, and I had to rebake the entire cake.
Uh-oh.
And I was definitely not happy because it was actually a gluten-free cake, so it was a little bit more involved. It wasn't just a regular old cake. So
do you use the Pampered Chef measuring cup to bake them in?
No, I actually have a pan. So there is actually a Wilton doll pan that is the shape of the dress, which it comes with a doll. It's not a real Barbie. It's just a doll if you want to use it.
Okay.
But most clients want to use a real doll. Like I said, I've used Elsa and Anna. I've used a real Barbie. And those dolls are taller. So you actually have to make an extra cake to make it tall enough
to sit on top of the other
so that she goes all the way in.
Okay.
But yes, I've definitely had mistakes and I've definitely rebaked before. That was the one that stands out in my mind the most. Oh, I cried and cried at that one. Because it literally
That's the record for the most tears.
Yeah. I mean, it just completely broke in half.
Oh.
Yes. Elsa broke the cake. Pretty much. She froze the cake and it broke.
Yeah, and then do your kids get to eat those?
Yes. They love the mess ups. They love the scraps. They love the leftovers. My daughter has already been asking me, do you have any extra of those heart cookies? I'm like, you don't get the extras until I'm done the order. Because I always make extra, especially with the cookies. I always make extra in case I mess up. Because, handwriting very small on there, thank you. If my hand slips, I need to have some extras. So they'll get the mess ups and they do enjoy those. The little pieces of fondant that don't get used, they come behind me. They're like my little garbage disposals.
Well, that's good. Well, I hope that they can come on Friday and draw cakes with me.
Yes, I will. I will get them on there.
On Facebook, we're Facebook Live. I'll be drawing cakes. That was Vera's idea. So you can thank Vera for me inviting you, because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be thinking about cakes. She got us started on this whole thing. And so, and then I don't know if you saw my post today, but there's an artist actually named Wayne Thibault, and he painted cakes, and he painted fantastic cakes. And so we're going to kind of be inspired by Wayne Thibault as well as being inspired by your awesome cakes. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Especially because I did not give you that much warning on this thing. You just put this all together really fast. But if anybody can do it, it's you, because you're a big multitasker. And you also have a great attitude. You just kind of just jump in and try things and see what's going to happen. Good. And that's what that's what these lives are like. You just have to jump in and do this. And who knows, you might want to start your own live show once like when you're not baking every live moment that you're not working.
Yes, exactly.
But Emily says it was super fun. Yes. And it was super fun. And we got some really different people on here. Not everybody likes art, but a lot of people like cake. So I'm really excited that you were able to come and to show just the artistry that people can use that beautiful creative brain that God has given
Mhm.
us. We can use it for all kinds of things, and particularly for these great cakes that also taste good too.
Yes.
So I'll be talking to you about my cake order soon.
Yep, get it into. I usually, FYI, for anyone local that does want to order, I usually book a good 30 days out in advance. So if you have a date in mind, definitely reach out as soon as you have a date because I do book up.
Okay.
So
Well,
awesome.
thank you very much,
Thank
and
you.
take care. It was great to see your face,
I know you
you know,
too.
after months.
Exactly. All right.
So
Thanks.
take care. Bye
You
bye.
too. Bye bye.